Parents want what is best for their kids, and they work really hard to give them every opportunity possible. But more and more parents are starting to believe the American dream may be out of reach for their children. Thanks so much for staying with us tonight. I'm Tamsen Fidel.
And I'm Erin LeBeau. So a new poll finds parents are not optimistic that their children will be financially successful. Now, only 42% of adults think it is very or somewhat likely that their kids today will be better off financially than their parents. But is there any truth behind that fear?
And joining us now to talk more about it is Mark Scribner, a private CFO with Oxygen Financial. And nice to have you with us. Nice to have you back again, Mark.
Good afternoon.
So when it comes to planning for the future, there is a lot, of course, we cannot control, including the economy. What are some of the reasons, though, parents are concerned outside of that?
Yeah, I would say for your Boomer 2 viewers that are out there that have a vision of converting that one bedroom into that private gym, kids are staying in their parents' home for a lot longer. The Gen Zs and the millennials, they don't feel very confident at all about their future, and that's transposing back to the parents' concerns as well.
Okay, so Mark, that's just one part of it, but people in their 20s and 30s are also facing an uphill battle. So what's different for them than their parents that they didn't really have to deal with?
Well, I mean, us as the boomers, I'm a boomer. We had, an amazing stock market for 10 years. We had the ability to buy houses at pretty good prices. We had low interest rates. The next generation, they don't have that, and they're coming back out of a pandemic and getting layoffs and things like that. So they have had a lot of obstacles that are out in the workforce now.
Well, when you look at salaries and you also look at the cost of living these days compared to, say, 30 years ago, what are some of the big differences you're seeing?
Definitely rent. Like in New York right
Sure.
now, to be economically qualified to get a one bedroom, for example, you have to have about $143,000 a year in salary, which is something like 60% of the take home pay. So there's not a lot left to do anything after that. And in fact, some of the younger folks, they're not even saving for retirement right now. A study by Schwab recently just said that they're electing to save into health savings accounts versus saving for retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Mark, a lot of parents talk to their kids about the importance of saving for the future, but how is that even possible?
It really is very difficult, and that's what you see in all the surveys right now. The optimism isn't there, but it does start at a very early age. If you're giving a salary and you have two buckets or two little pots, like pay yourself first. You have to teach these younger people to basically pay themselves first. They're living paycheck to paycheck and they're not putting anything aside. So there's no ability to get that dream house or even have a safety net.
And I know a lot of people are concerned, it's just too late to start saving. Is it really ever too late to start saving?
Absolutely not. It's a law of compounding average. I mean, it just takes a little bit on a regular basis, and you'd be surprised. It does not take long to save and compound. So anything helps. I mean, if you don't start now, you're never going to have a chance to succeed.
All right, so what is actually your advice for parents whose children are still young? Is there anything that they can do right now to help them get prepared?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully at the high school level, there's a lot of talk about states incorporating some kind of financial literacy and education, but I think it should start a lot sooner than that. Like I said, sitting down with your kids, if you're giving an allowance, for example, educating them about paying themselves first and putting some money aside for a future goal or a project. But the earlier you can start, the better it's going to be, because it's kind of a learned behavior that will carry forward your entire life.
Let me ask you, is there a way to make it fun for kids? And when you're talking about kids that are young, you've got to figure out a way to make it fun. Otherwise, they want to go buy whatever the coolest thing is out there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you can just pick a goal, like, do a chore, if you get $1, let's put 20% into something fun. So I do think it's important to create the fun aspect, because otherwise it's going to feel like it's not going to happen. There are some websites out there that, create kind of education. They have like a Disney theme, if you will, if you save. You can get a share of Disney and all kinds of education around that. But there are many, many ways to make it fun, and I think it just depends on your creativity and your family.
Adults need some of those fun things, right? not just the kids. Not just the kids.
Mark, you also mentioned rent. That takes up a lot of people's income, and many people are even moving back in with their parents. Are there any other options for people?
I get to meet with a lot of developers across the country. This is more probably in the future, but there's a lot of talk about creating micro units, almost like a dorm experience where, for say, you could live in a 500 square foot really nice property that has a window and a great view, but then it's all about the amenities. So keeping the rents down. But unfortunately, in some of the major cities like New York and Boston, for example, there aren't a lot of options if you're working in the city. So a lot of people are migrating to cheaper places like Texas and Florida, you know, migrating out of California because they just can't make ends meet with the cost for living and rents and inflation and all those things that are happening every single day to all of us. But they impact mostly the younger generation because there's nothing left.
Yeah, we're sure seeing that, that's for sure. Mark, nice to see you as always. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having me.
If you want to check out more of Mark's financial tips, you can follow him on Twitter at Mark Scribner, BOS.